On this episode of Fee-Based Financial Planning Mastery, I'm going to talk about math and the math behind a fee-based financial planning firm and what makes a fee-based financial planning firm run profitably. So stay tuned. You're going to love this show.
Running a successful fee-based financial planning business is tough, and escaping the shackles of a commission-based financial planning practice is terrifying. When all you want to do is learn from those who know. Learn from financial planners who are there on the front lines doing it each and every day. What if you could just open their kimono and take a look inside to learn what works and what doesn't? Now there's a place where the secrets to running a fee-based financial planning business are revealed to those who believe. Fee-based financial planning mastery. Ease your mind.
Hi everyone, it's Scott Plaskett here, and thanks for joining me. In this podcast, you will learn what's working and what's not in the world of fee-based financial planning. In each episode, I'm going to open my kimono and let you take an insider's look at what's working and what's not in my practice to help you take your business to the next level. I've been a fee-based certified financial planner since the early 90s, so believe me, I know the challenges you're facing. So get ready to learn not from a teacher, coach, or guru, but from a colleague who's on the front lines just like you. And I'd like to invite you to subscribe to my email internet newsletter to get the most up-to-date tips on how to build and grow your fee-based financial planning practice by going to feebasedfinancialplanningmastery.com. So what's new with me? Well, basically, we are just finishing up our mid-year reviews, and we've had a wonderful mid-year review season. It's been just great. The meetings we've had with our clients have been fantastic, and we've got so much positive feedback from our clients. Everybody's left happy. It's helped that, performance is up and people have been rewarded for sticking with it. So, that's all good. But the one thing that I found really interesting is, and I talked about this a little bit, I posted a question on this in the Fee-Based Financial Planning Mastery LinkedIn group. And for those of you who aren't part of the LinkedIn group, definitely head over and check it out. Just go to LinkedIn and type in Fee-Based Financial Planning Mastery, and you'll find the LinkedIn group there and join it. Or put a request in to join. You have to be a practicing financial planner to join the group because we only want that type of input in that community. There's a lot of other groups out there if you want some other topics, but this one deals specifically with fee-based financial planning. And one of the questions that I posted was, how do you move into your time off and take some time off while not seeing a dip in your revenue? Because one of the biggest problems we have as financial planners is that, if we're not financial planning, then we technically aren't generating revenue. And, there is the nice thing about the consistency of our revenue is that it does come in from the oversight fees and the financial planning fees, and they come in on a fairly consistent basis because when people join your program, then they're joining the program for a year, and it just seems to renew. But when you're not there actually meeting with new people and bringing on new clients, you tend to see some of that drop off. And so how do you manage that? How do you deal with that? And I've been thinking about this for a little bit, and I realized, not without really knowing it, and when I look back at how we designed our workflow and how we designed our meeting process, that I designed it so I had meetings set up prior. Basically I finished all of my full year review meetings and my mid-year review meetings prior to big events. And a big event to me would be like time off. So if I was taking some time off in the summertime, going to our cottage or whatever it happens to be, then I'd want to make sure that I had met with everybody so that, it kind of limits the number of phone calls, incoming calls. And I've always said it before that if you have a lot of incoming calls from your clients, then you're not doing enough proactively to anticipate those calls and to anticipate that. And one of the things we found with designing our business where we had our full year reviews and mid-year reviews at certain times throughout the year, and I'll go into details as to when I do that, is that we found our calls, the number of calls that we got from our existing clients went down. And that's simply because people knew, okay, you know what, I've got a meeting coming up with Scott, so I'll save that question till that meeting, and then they would just do that. And so people just got to rely on that taking place. And so what I recognized was that when you know if you're having some summertime off, generally I'll talk here about summer holidays. If you're coming up to summer holidays and you wanted to take some extended time off without seeing a dip in revenue, well, then what you can do is basically make sure you've met with all of your clients prior to that. And those meetings, they simply generate opportunities. And when you go through and have good conversations with your clients and talk about their family and talk about their occupation and talk about some of the recreation ideas that they have and what they're up to, and then talk about their money and talk about their financial plan, what you end up doing is you end up getting a real clear sense of what's changed and what's going on in their lives. And that gives you the opportunity to really, take a look at what things they may need to be aware of. And so you can proactively bring up certain topics like living benefits, or maybe some estate planning topics, or if there's some tax changes that are taking place, or structures of maybe insurance policies or contracts or anything like that, you can always bring those up and say, hey, I need to bring this to your attention because maybe something in the living benefit side is changing, and I want to make sure you have the opportunity to say no, that is maybe not right for you, because maybe it might be right for you. And if you don't have the opportunity to say no, you're going to be missing out on that opportunity. And so getting together with those clients and reviewing those things prior to your time off simply identifies opportunities that you can then work on, and working on those opportunities and having those opportunities, for example, in underwriting, if we're talking insurance, or in transfer, if you're talking about some oversight and implementation fees, or meeting with some clients in advance of the time off, so that you've met with brand new clients, you've brought them on as new financial planning clients, and then maybe if you're gone for 2 weeks, then you just book your first presentation meeting for after that time period. So you're basically structuring your business around your lifestyle. And it really is important to me that you know to structure your business around your lifestyle design. So that really is what I recognize, is that by doing that, so we tend to have our review meetings. The mid-year review meetings are ending basically the end of June. They're all ended in I try to keep it to the last week, or the third week of June is the last meeting, or last time period for those meetings. So then I can go into the summertime with an open slate, and I can go into the summertime, put some aggressive marketing programs out there, and perhaps cluster my potential new meetings in. So if I know I'm going to take some time off, then I can say to my staff, listen, I'm going to be back in the office. I'm going to have time for a whole series of meetings on this particular week. And what that allows me to do is when the marketing is running for me, because you all know that the marketing I do is the education-based direct response marketing, and it is automated. When that's running, and people do call in for meetings, then my staff just knows, okay, I'm going to book the meetings for this particular week, and these are the days that I'm going to be doing it, so that when I can then take the time off with my family and take the time off to recharge my batteries. And what that allows me to do is really get rejuvenated. And then when I come back, I can come back hard and just, focus on those clients and give them my full attention. And it just, it means that you're not really seeing that dip in revenue, especially when you recognize opportunities with existing clients. Those can be in underwriting while you're on holidays, and it takes time to get those plans put together, and it takes time to get the assets transitioned over to your new investment solutions. And you may as well take time off when that's happening. So you cluster things, is what I'm trying to say. Is clustering is important. Cluster booking your appointments, cluster booking your time, and that all means that you've got to proactively look at your year and say, okay, when am I going to take my time off? When am I going to have downtime? And when am I going to have focus time? And for those of you who don't know about free days, focus days, and buffer days, which is simply a Dan Sullivan, the entrepreneurial time system, you got to give credit where credit's due. I mean, the man knows his stuff. And if you can really follow that approach and orchestrate and craft your year the way you want it, and you can really take a look at what days are the days that you're going to be simply revenue generation days, what days are going to be your days where you're going to be preparing for those revenue generation days, and what days you're going to prepare for your time off, and then what days are going to be your time off. Focus on that and really, really plan that out. So I tend to map that out. When I first learned this concept, I would map it out over a 12-month period, and I would just basically look at my whole year, and I would book off my time. I would book everything out. I would literally put every single day what type of day it was going to be and what activities I was going to do each day. So if it was going to be a meeting day, then I would have meeting days. So it would be the equivalent of my focus day. If it was going to be a buffer day, then I would simply do those tasks that allowed me to prepare properly for my focus days and prepare properly for my free days. And then if it was time off, it was time off. It's a constantly challenging process to have those days and to keep those days in line. But you know what? With the ideal week that I talk about and the template that I put together in the with the mind map that I use, that I put together every single Monday, that really helps me stay focused on that. So that's what I'm up to these days. Is I'm just finishing off my mid-year reviews, and then I also plan in Canada. Anyways, we have our sort of financial season, or what some people call RSP season, happens January and February. Well, I want to make sure that I've completed all of my client reviews, my full year review meetings, by the end of December, so that I can jump into January and February, which is when all the media talks about financial issues and it really becomes top of mind. That's when I want to take on new clients, because it's just simply an easier time period to talk about that stuff, and people are more inclined to be looking into finding a new financial planner, and they're just simply more open to some of the marketing. So we tend to go very, very hard with our marketing in January and February. We even start in December to get sort of people aware of what's going on. And so it's important that you make sure your meetings are all done. Now, it was interesting. A lot of the investment firms we used to work with, they would constantly contact me in January and February and say, we want to get together and talk about sort of what's new. And I'm like, hello, I've already met with all my clients. I mean, you guys are so behind the ball. Why don't you meet with me beforehand so that we can? But they're just not ready for that. So they tend to focus on. They're very reactionary based. And I think what's important is you want to make sure that when you're building your business, you're building it to be much more proactive. And so you're anticipating things. And you know what? Clients really like that. And it sounds off the top, maybe it sounds a little rigid. It sounds a little, I don't know, anal, what you want to call it, A-type, whatever you want to call it. Bottom line is it works. And people, my clients, what I've found is that they tend to build some confidence with what you're doing, because they recognize that there's reliability to it, there's consistency to it, and then they just tend to just sort of follow in line, and you kind of train them that way. And so they bring their questions to you when they get together. The only time they necessarily call me is when an event takes place that really couldn't have been anticipated. Maybe it's a job loss, maybe it's an injury or an illness or something like that. Yeah, obviously then they contact you. But other than that, if it's stuff that can be proactively anticipated, you want to try and work that into your process. So that's just kind of what I've been up to over the past little while. It's been a really, really busy time for me. Oh my gosh! I mean, I've been hitting it hard with some serious, lots of meetings on my meeting days, and so it's been an extremely busy time on my front. So I do apologize for the last week's show, or sorry, the last episode that was supposed to come out didn't come out, and it's just simply because I got completely overwhelmed, completely bogged down, and I had just too many projects on the go. So something had to give. So I do apologize for that. However, this episode I know you're going to love. So I wanted to also give a shout out to some people who've been communicating with me from the show, some new people in the community, in the fee-based financial planning mastery community. I want to give a shout out to Wendy S. Thanks so much for your communication. Robert, Houston M, JC, and Jeff C. I really appreciate all the comments you guys have made. I love the communication back and forth. I love hearing what you're up to, where you're at with your business. Some of you are sort of in the early or late 20s, early 30s, just sort of getting out there and recognizing that you really love fee-based financial planning, and you're just trying to figure all the moving parts out and how to move your business forward. Other of you are kind of veterans in the business and have migrated over, and you're really, things are working well for you, and you don't really have any burning questions or anything at this point. But you know what? I think through listening to this podcast and listening to these shows, you're just going to be intrigued by all of what's going on and all that really you may get exposed to from this. And I think that sometimes we get into our regular routines and we tend not to look elsewhere. So the fact that you've found the show, that you found it perhaps on iTunes, and you're starting to consume that content through the iTunes and podcasts and whatnot, it's really just the cutting edge. And it's amazing how many people still haven't caught on to iTunes. And I don't know if people are aware of this, but iTunes is the third largest search engine in the world. and you can get some great content and great information. Just start, instead of going to Google next time, why don't you go to iTunes and just type in some of your search criteria and see what comes up. You will be amazed at what comes up in iTunes. The other thing I do appreciate for all of you who've left iTunes reviews, I'd love it if you could do me a favor and just head over to iTunes and just give me a quick review on what your thoughts are on the show. That's where iTunes really, they do pay attention to that, and I would love it if we could take this show and turn it into a new and noteworthy, or some sort of something like that. Because I tell you, the response I'm getting from the listeners of this show is fantastic, and they really are, saying how much value they're getting from it, and how much, they're just saying, Jesus, I'm getting more value from this show than I am from hiring certain people to be my coach and that sort of thing. So I really appreciate those comments. They really keep me coming back and wanting to give more and more. So yeah, do me a favor, head over to iTunes and give me a review. And I'd really appreciate that, because it's something that I'd love to get this show out there. I really think the whole fee-based financial planning business model is basically the model of the future when it comes to financial planning. The regulators are kind of pushing in that direction, and definitely in other parts of the world, they've already started pushing in that direction. But unfortunately, there's just a lot of people who haven't figured out how to run their business that way. So this is the type of show that hopefully will allow people to make that migration and to make that step into the fee-based financial planning business realm, and make a really, really high quality business as a result. So anyways, that's what's new with me. So let's now take it over to the feature segment.
And now for our feature segment.
So today I want to talk about one thing: the math behind a profitable fee-based financial planning business. You see, more often than not, the one thing standing in the way of an advisor migrating their business to a fee-based financial planning practice is the fear of the dreaded revenue dip. And I think you all know what I'm talking about when I talk about revenue dip. The expectation that from the time that you end your relationship with your previous dealer to the time you get all of your accounts transitioned over to your new dealer, you won't be getting any revenue for the assets under management for those clients. And that's a serious revenue dip, or potential revenue dip. Also, when you migrate from a commission-based model where you get used to the upfront heaped commissions to a fee-based model where you charge a fee for your financial planning advice and then simply receive a trailer fee for the assets under management, there's a big lag for the timing of your revenue. And you've got to be aware of that as well. And if you've elected to drop your investment license altogether, like I have, and work strictly on a fee for financial planning advice and an implementation and oversight fee for the investment counselors and portfolio managers you're referring to and hiring, you also have a more severe revenue dip. Simply put, the day you end your relationship with your previous broker-dealer, your revenue goes directly to that broker-dealer until you can migrate your clients to your new referral agreement relationship. In other words, as soon as you end your relationship, boom, you don't have any other revenue coming in. There's just nothing coming in. So you've got to figure that out, and you've got to be aware of that. And there are strategies that we're going to talk about that will allow you to make that transition. Bottom line is, there's a risk in the revenue dip. This revenue dip is real, and you've got to be aware of it. And this is the biggest hurdle, I think, financial advisors need to overcome before they can confidently take the next steps. Now, it's not that you don't have to experience the revenue dip, because there are a lot of things that you can do to overcome this. So let's talk about that now. So how do you overcome this big hurdle? Well, today I'm going to ramble on about how I overcame this hurdle, and then finish off with a financial analysis that you can use to benchmark yourself against, so that you can truly see that the hurdle is actually lower than you think. The first thing you need to do before moving forward is you need to sell yourself on the business model. You need to be totally convinced it's the right model for you. If you're not sold that this is the right thing to do, you won't be able to successfully motivate your clients that it's better for them. And this is really important, because if you're not completely sold on it, you're just simply not going to be convincing on it. So the first thing you need to do in selling yourself is you have to ask yourself these three questions. Or, sorry, there aren't three questions. There's a little bit more than that. But you have to ask yourself these questions. If you were sitting here 3 years from today and reflecting back on your progress, what would have to happen for you to feel happy with your progress in migrating to a fee-based financial planning practice? In particular, what dangers would you like to avoid? What opportunities would you like to focus on? And once you've taken action on all these opportunities and you've avoided all these dangers, what strengths would you like to spend more time working on? Anybody feel that they've heard this question somewhere before? Just putting that out there. You bet. It's a great question. I didn't invent the question, so I'm not going to take credit for it, but I am going to give credit where credit's due. This is the infamous R factor question that was created by Dan Sullivan. I just want to give credit to Dan because when I went through this, and really when you truly embrace this question, it is a powerful question. So anyways, I'll leave it with that. If you want to find out more about the question, just head into the show notes. I've got a link there to Strategic Coach, and you can link over to that and find out more about their programs, which I think are phenomenal. I've been part of the program at this point for now 15 years. Love it. I'm a lifer. Anyways, leave it at that. So now let's dive into the answers to these questions. The questions about what dangers would you like to avoid? What opportunities would you like to focus on? And simply what strengths would you then like to really spend more of your time on? Because they'll be the building blocks for selling yourself on the idea of migrating to a fee-based financial planning model. So I'm going to go through my answers to these questions, and I want you to listen to my answers and then write down your own version. Okay, answers that are more in line with you. I don't expect these answers to be the same for you. And you know what? I mean, it's really a personal thing. But use them as a bit of a guide. So I'm sitting here 3 years from today, looking back on my progress on migrating to a fee-based financial planning model. So I've done it. I'm looking back. Now I'm asking myself, what dangers did I avoid? What dangers did I now, as a result of doing that, did I not face? Well, some of the dangers that people have is identifying your value with the financial products that are quickly becoming commoditized, and that's going to simply put downward pressure on your earning potential. I know advisors that used to say, "Oh, I can build a better mutual fund portfolio." Seriously? I mean, if that's the route you're taking, you better get away from that because you can't build a better mutual fund portfolio. You maybe can build one that has better historical performance, historical optics, historical numbers, whatever. You can build good portfolios, but if that's where your value lies, you know what? You're going to start to need to move on. You need to move beyond that because mutual funds in particular, or financial products in particular, anything that has a product associated with it is becoming commoditized. And when that happens, there's only one place for your earnings on those, and it simply goes down. Earnings on a commoditized product, they tend to drop down because everybody's trying to, they're trying to, what do they call it? They're racing to the bottom. And they're dropping fees to try and get market share, and they're simply trying to buy market share through lower and lower fees. And the bottom line is that's not where value exists. The other thing is that I would want to avoid would be, people will only pay for value, and therefore I can't place my value on choosing those better products. So I need to come to the marketplace with something more. I need to come with something that goes well beyond anything product. And I mean, to be honest with you, for my first 3 or 4 meetings with a client, I don't talk about product. When I have introductions, I mean, all my marketing, everything, I simply don't talk about products because products are simply the tools that we use to implement, but we have no idea what we're trying to implement. So I don't identify myself with products. So the danger you want to avoid is identifying yourself with those products. The regulators, in their efforts to try to protect the public, they're actually causing the public to become more and more frustrated with the whole industry. The regulators are they're trying so hard to, I don't know whether it's level the playing field or just make more transparency, but the problem is that they're not doing a good job at educating clients or educating the public, and they're forcing advisors to do things without really giving them they're basically saying this is what's going to happen and you better step up and figure out a solution around it. And so people are complaining a lot. I was talking with a colleague of mine that was saying that they were at a compliance meeting and the people were getting angry with the speaker. Bottom line is, what's the point? Don't bother getting angry because those decisions, those compliance decisions and those changes when it comes to full disclosure and transparency and all this that's going on, they're there. They're coming. You can't avoid it. So you'd better start to get together with your colleagues and find out what's working in order to make sure that you're presenting things properly. You need to position yourself as different, as I've done. Position yourself as different from the industry. That's an imperative component to avoiding the dangers that you're going to face if you stick with with your particular commission-based model. So you got to get away from identifying yourself with products. That's the only way that you're going to be able to stand sort of above the crowd or away from the crowd, and you've got to find a way of doing that. And so I really highly recommend that you focus on creating your own process, creating something that's unique to you, and then promoting that becomes your service offering. And so at the end of the day, what I'm recommending is you productize your own service. And I've talked about that in previous episodes, so I'm not going to go into too much detail here. But it is imperative that you definitely focus on more about what you can bring to the table from a value standpoint, as opposed to the products and features, or the features of the products that you're offering. I don't like it when I hear advisors saying, "Oh, well, I've spent a lot of time on this particular, unique product because it's so unique to the marketplace that it's, they're starting to identify themselves with that." And the problem with that is that it kind of locks you in. And what happens if the rules change? What happens if a tax rule changes that maybe takes away the benefit that those products used to offer? Now, what have you got? You've got an identity with something that's flawed. So do yourself a favor. Don't try to add value to your relationships through promoting and really spending a lot of time on branding yourself with the products that you're offering. Put together your solutions as more of an advisory practice, and take your service and productize your own service, and that's going to make a big difference. So what opportunities did I focus on over the last 3 years in this example? Well, the opportunities, focusing on my strengths will allow me to bring extra value to my chosen markets by taking the time to really understand their frustrations. And it's their frustrations toward the financial industry. I can solve those problems and build a tremendous amount of rapport at the same time by doing this. So when it comes to putting together, developing and creating opportunities for yourself, you want to ask yourself, okay, who do I want to work with? And I'm not saying here, and I've talked about this before, where you don't want to niche yourself down necessarily, but you do want to say to yourself, I want to deal with, in this particular marketing piece, I want to deal with a particular frustration. And I have maybe there's a certain strategy, or maybe there's a certain type of client that you particularly like to work with. And so you can just start marketing towards those clients. Well, how do you market to them? Well, what you want to do is maybe go and ask some of them, say, listen, I just want to ask you some questions. I'm doing some market research, and I'm actually writing a report, and I want to find out from you, what are your biggest frustrations with the financial industry right now? And just sit back and listen to what they have to say, and start taking some notes on what they have to say. What is it that's frustrating them? Take note of all those things, and then put together a piece of content that addresses those frustrations, that addresses, here's what the frustrations are, and here's how to get away from those frustrations. Here's how to solve those problems. And say to them, listen, I'm just doing some research here. I'm just asking what these frustrations are. And in return for this, when I do finish writing the paper or report or ebook or whatever it happens to be, would you like a copy of it? As my way of saying thank you for helping me with this research that I'm doing. Well, believe me, you're not there selling anything to them. So it is actually kind of an interesting marketing method where you can actually talk to people with no threat at all, because you're not there to sell anything. You're asking them what their opinion is. And believe me, people love to give you their opinion. And then when you say, listen, when I'm done the report, I'm more than happy to give you a free copy. Would you like me to do that? And why are they going to say no? I mean, they'd love to find out. If you're writing a report on these frustrations, they're all over it. Well, instantly, you've now got yourself a market. So, putting the time into focusing on certain markets this way will really add a lot of value to that market, and you're going to get some really, really good information that you can then put some solutions together for. Now, people will only pay for value, and therefore, I can't place my value on choosing better products. And so you need to be aware of that. Now, when it comes to opportunities, education-based marketing will allow me to target those markets. And I just talked about that a little bit, and feel that, and you want to target the markets you feel that you can really be service to. It also allows me to do so without having to spend tons of money on branding style advertising. I was at a conference not too long ago, and there was some branding discussions going on. And, I thought to myself, really? I mean, the money that goes into that, and it's not it's very difficult to track that. It's very difficult when, the guy told me it was being about $25,000 to $30,000 once you were all done, and you had this wonderful brochure and image and all this sort of stuff. And I thought, okay, but do you have any clients yet? And really what you've done is you've just done everything to feed your own ego and to make yourself look good, but is it adding value to your clients? And, at the end of the day, the argument was, well, yeah, you're going to add value because now you have some uniqueness, and people will resonate with that uniqueness. You know what? That takes too long for me. They can resonate with my uniqueness once they become a client, but I need to get them as a client first. Otherwise, this doesn't work. So I need to focus on inexpensive ways that I can constantly track and constantly tweak to make my my marketing dollars go a lot further because we're a small business here. We're not a big marketing organization. You know, and I heard a story many years ago from Dan Kennedy, and he said, I think it was Dan Kennedy, and he said that he had a big client when he was working in a big marketing agency, and they had a big client, and they knew that the client's wife loved their dog and had this little poodle, or I don't know what kind of dog it was actually, but it was a little poodle. And so the joke around the office was that all they needed to do is create marketing pieces and create glossy brochures and expensive advertising, that as long as they had a picture of that dog in the advertising, they'd be able to keep that client for as long as possible. They didn't care necessarily that the client wasn't necessarily getting clients from that, because they knew that the wife was always going to be saying, hey, I love that piece, look at the dog, this is a great marketing piece, these guys are so great. They didn't care if it was going to work or not. They knew that, that's image-based advertising. And you know what, it's not the most effective use of your dollars, or at least it's not the most effective use of my dollars. So I want to make sure I can get a return on my investment, and I want to make sure I can track it as well. So definitely focus on the education-based marketing. Now, the other opportunity is when you complete your V2 Mom, and I've talked about a V2 Mom before, and if you don't know what a V2 Mom is, then I recommend you head back over to the Fee-Based Financial Planning Mastery website. Just go to the search section there and just type in V, the number 2, and then Mom, and it will come up with a whole blog post on how to do it. There's a whole podcast I did on how to complete your V2 Mom. And what it does with the V2 Mom, it provides you with a roadmap to focus on for building your business over the next 12 months. The first time I came across the V2 Mom, and it's a solution that Mark Benioff used. And Mark Benioff is the creator of Salesforce.com, and I read about this in his book called Beyond the Cloud. Great book, by the way, and I think I've also got it in the recommended reading section of the website. Great book, and I recommend getting it as an audiobook as well. That's how I listen to it. Anyways, and they talked about this whole concept of V2 Mom, and it was a great way. When I finished the V2 Mom for my business, it gave me such clarity on what I needed to do, what my vision was, what my methods were that I was going to follow in order to to make my vision become a reality, what measurement I was going to be following, the opportunities I was going to focus on, the obstacles that I was going to face that I needed to overcome. It gave you all of this information, and it gave you such clarity on what it is you needed to focus on. And so that's really where you can focus on your opportunities and get clear on what it is you want to do, and it really becomes an extension of you. So that would have been an opportunity that you want to focus on in order to get some clarity on your market, which is going to then give you some clarity on the marketing that you're going to do. And then strengths that I focus on once I've worked on each of my opportunities. Well, I'm a business builder, and as a result, I can focus on working on my business now as opposed to in my business a lot more, which will accomplish two things. One, it's going to allow me to build a better business that enhances my lifestyle. And number two, solving my business challenges will allow me to speak with wisdom to my business owner clients, to truly show them the value in how my financial planning process directly solves their unique challenges, and it allows me to speak to them as a true ally. So, I really saw that as being a double benefit there, because obviously if you're creating a successful business and a thriving business, you're going to be faced with growth challenges. You're going to be faced with all the challenges that come with it, with hiring, with staffing, with technology, with office space, with furniture, with all this sort of stuff that goes well beyond just, being a financial planner. Oh my gosh. And that's one thing that I think anybody who's out there who's new, you really need to pay attention to, is the cost that goes into building your business, because there's there is more infrastructure cost than you think. And, it takes a while to do that. And so if you can align yourself with a financial planning firm and, follow the steps that I talked about in a previous episode, where you can actually approach the fee-based financial planning firm that you want to work with and say to them, listen, I want to work with you, but what I want to do is I need to work with a firm who has the infrastructure in place to help me execute my existing business plan that I already know works. And, anyways, I've gone into more detail on how to do that. So just go back a few episodes and you'll hear me speak about that. But that's a big component, because you can blow your brains out. And I've seen it happen where people spend all this time and money on getting their business cards and letterhead put together, and, paying somebody to design a logo, and buying desks and buying chairs and getting office space and leases and all this sort of stuff. They spend months putting all this together. They haven't even got one client yet. So, you're almost putting the cart before the horse here. You need to get out and get a client first of all. So the only thing you need to spend time on, if you're brand new in this business, get yourself a good computer, get yourself a cloud-based solution for your CRM, for managing that. Go into the resources section of the Fee-Based Financial Planning Mastery website and get yourself your autoresponder Aweber account, get yourself your Bluehost account, get yourself your website, and get yourself some marketing going. Get those meetings first of all. Chances are you're going to have those meetings in the client's home anyways at the beginning. Get those meetings done and get those new clients. Get those new clients to pay for your growth. Don't pay for the growth expecting the new clients to come. It's very stressful to do it that way. There's a lot to be said for that build it and they will come mentality, but it also brings with it a lot of stress. So don't spend the time on keeping your hands busy. Spend the time on getting new clients. Focus on the low-hanging fruit at first, that I call it. So that's what I found allowed me, when I got through all of those dangers and I made sure I avoided those dangers and I focused on my opportunities and I got really clear on what it is that I was doing and I had got my marketing running, that then allowed me the freedom to build my business and to work on my business, which gave me a better lifestyle, but also made me a better planner, because then I began to focus on the business owner clients, and I could say to them, listen, I know the exact challenge you're going through. I've been through it, and here's what I did to solve that problem. All of a sudden, they perk up and they listen, and they see you as a true resource. And when they see you as a resource, they're going to start saying, hey, you know what? We should maybe sit down and have a conversation. I can't tell you the number of times this has happened to me, and it worked like a charm. So definitely working through your dangers, opportunities, and strengths will provide you with the energy for the work that needs to be done to properly migrate you to a fee-based financial planning business and to make you a better fee-based financial planner. So focus on that. Take the time and really spend some time on that. Even if you want to hit pause on the episode now, go out there, get your V2 Mom done. It really is the first step into getting some clarity on what you need to do. Then the next thing I would recommend you do is identify the model of fee-based financial planner that you would like to follow. Okay, so what am I talking about here? Well, there's a few different models that you can follow. And generally what I find is that people who have started in the commission-based world will go through a variety of different transitions or iterations or whatever, renditions of their business. But at the end of the day, I believe they will ultimately end up dropping their investment license. Now, that may not be the case. They may not ever get to that point. They may just stick to the point of going totally fee-based financial planning, doing all the referral agreements and whatnot, but keeping their license. And that's fine. They can do that, but they will run into certain challenges in doing so. So, you can go down the investment licensed route or the non-investment licensed route. And I tell you, I've gone down both roads, and there's truly, for me, one clear path that is better than the other. And if you haven't guessed it, it's the non-investment licensed route. There are many reasons for this, but it does require a mind shift in your offering and how you present it. Because if you have been licensed, you whether you like it or not, you've probably identified yourself as a business person in the marketplace by those products and by that license. But by dropping that license, you almost feel like you're giving away a part of what you worked so hard to get. And I felt that as well. But at the end of the day, the decision to drop that license was the best decision that I ever made. Mastering this will simply set you free. So it's the mindset that I'm talking about. So let me explain what I mean. You see, more often than not, financial planners become financial planners after they obtain their investment and or insurance licenses. So and I think the reason for that is that it's easier to get your licenses for selling products than it is to get your CFP. It's just, you can do it quicker. So at the end of the day, when you've either graduated from school or you come out and you're changing a career, you need to pay the bills. So what do? You get kind of sucked into the quickest route to getting some cash flow, which is going the product route. So the product manufacturers and dealers, they get a hold of you and encourage you to sell more products. Encouragement by way of things like compensation, perks, trips, whatever it happens to be. And then you kind of spend less time on providing financial advice or doing financial planning. But that's kind of the motivation of what got you there in the first place. But the problem is you're having to put that on the side because you need to pay the bills and you haven't quite figured out yet how to run your business as a fee-based financial planner. The reason why the manufacturers and the dealers don't encourage you to go down the financial planning route is because it doesn't make them as much money, or they don't think it makes them as much money. But I think they're missing a key ingredient here, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. But the reason that is the financial advice model doesn't make the manufacturers as much money is what they think. They spend no time setting up solutions for financial advisors to properly deliver their advice and put all of the emphasis on selling a product to get compensated. Now, oftentimes they make it seem like they're doing it. I've had firms that put together their own financial planning software and whatever, but all they've done is they're finding ways that can make it quicker for you to make it seem like you're giving good quality financial planning advice, but ultimately it's in the direction of selling more products. And that, as a financial planner, is not the best route to follow. The only loser in this game is the client, because all too often the only advice given is the advice that will help them sell more products. And this is not always the right advice, and we know that, but we've got to pay the bills. And so there's this constant duel that's going on. So start answering your clients' questions, not with product solutions, but with a planning solution. Always focus on a planning solution. Always focus on that. That's going to reinforce the advice that you're giving. You see, one of the easiest ways I found when you're making this transition to a fee-based financial planning model is, in the past, we've always answered our clients' questions or prospects' questions by rhyming off features of a product. And, that then hoping that it's going to allow us to have the conversation with the client and talk more about product. Well, I think that's the wrong approach. What you want to do is you want to start answering their solutions or answering their questions with planning solutions, with bringing it back to the financial plan. If they say, oh, my investments are, not performing very well. Well, what rate of return does your financial plan require for you to accomplish your financial goals? Huh? What do you mean? So you see how I did that? You see, you're just basically coming back to the financial planning, because it is where the solution lies. It is where the answer lies, not in the product. The product is simply a tool you're going to use to execute the plan, but the plan is going to give you the confidence that you're on the right track. So always start answering those questions and just train yourself. Always ask yourself, okay, how can I bring this back to the financial plan? So when somebody says, oh, my insurance is far too expensive, really, have you then done an analysis to determine from a financial planning perspective how much insurance you really need for your household? Or if it's living benefits, or if it's, whatever it happens to be, you can always bring it back to that component of your financial plan. So always focusing on the planning solution that's going to provide confidence to your clients that the analysis you're putting together is complete and logical. And when it's complete and logical, it's usually more actionable. Now, this is where the product manufacturers are kind of missing the boat. So if they could spend more time, and this is something that I believe, that if they could spend more time on allowing people and creating solutions and models to let people provide more advice and get compensated for providing that advice, they would actually have more product implementation. In a nutshell, this is where the product manufacturers miss the boat. They're providing product solutions based on what they can sell as opposed to what a client needs. I've talked with some of the investment counselors who we work with, and one in particular I'm thinking of. He was, I think this story was, he was the chairman of the board for new product development in the firm, and it was sort of just as the tech bubble was really, really getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and the sales guys came and said, "Hey, we need another tech fund." And he said, I just don't think that's the right thing. I don't think that's the right thing for the client, because, we're kind of at a peaking out here. I don't think that it's sustainable. Adding another product like this is going to attract more money to something that's potentially going to blow up, and bottom line was he got overridden. The sales tail was wagging that dog. And this was a big institutional firm who, in Canada, is a big player in the marketplace. And they were just simply making the decisions based on what they could sell versus what was right for the client. Now, and the dealers, the dealers and manufacturers and regulators don't understand. What they don't understand is that the industry is a much better place when product solutions are being crafted more from what a client needs versus what they can sell to a client. And, I just wish they would understand that they would, if they would let the financial planners craft out exactly what is required and then let them go and find those solutions, if they don't exist, they're going to be asked for. And that's how the product should be manufactured, is based on what the needs are of the client. And the implementation rates, when you follow that route, implementation rates actually rise. And at the end of the day, more people implement their plans because they make sense to them thus increasing their product sales. It's kind of funny that this is the big thing that the manufacturers aren't listening to or aren't getting. And if any of you are listening to this are part of a product manufacturing company, take this to heart. Really try to find yourself putting together focus groups, not with people who receive their compensation primarily from commissions. Find fee-based financial planners and say, listen, what solutions are you finding clients are needing? And then direct it from that. I think you're going to find that there's going to be a lot of interest in that type of approach. Okay, now I want to talk about math. Now, in talking about math, I don't want to bore you. I want to try to keep it as easy as possible, but I'm just going to go through some math because it's and you may have your opinions on whether or not my math is right or my assumptions are right, but I'm just going to go through this and I'm going to explain to you exactly, the my opinion of the different models that we have. So since a lot of you are either driving, running, or riding right now, I'm going to keep the math as simple as possible, okay? So there's 3 basic business models. Model A is the commission-based model. Model B is the fee-based model with an investment license. Model C is the fee-based model without an investment license. Now, we're going to look at an average 1 year in the life of an advisor, okay, in each of these. So then, and I'm choosing these numbers. These numbers may be close to what your numbers are. They may be way off, but I've got to start somewhere. So I'm going to assume that a financial planner or financial advisor or the financial person in this case is going to bring on, over the course of a year, 12 new clients. It's simply 1 client per month. And I'm going to assume that the average assets per household or per new household client is going to be $200,000. Okay. And I'm also going to assume that the average insurance policy need is going to be a total of about $1 million of insurance. And it could be just term insurance or whatever, but there's a certain need there. There's also going to be some living benefits need, whether it be critical illness or long-term care, long-term disability, or some combination of all of that. Okay, and that really, those are a lot of the key or core implementation solutions that you will be working on when you work with from a comprehensive nature. You'll be working in that in those types of solutions. Now, in year 1, here's how the numbers would shake out. And again, this may be different in your jurisdiction. I don't know, but I'm going to try and keep everything as equal as I can so I can do an apples to apples comparison here. So in Model A, for year 1 with a commission-based model. So the question is, are there any fees that are generated for the advice? Well, no, there's no fees because it's a commission-based model. So the gross investment revenue would be about $120,000 for that 12-month period, because if you brought on 12 new households with $200,000 in assets, and there was a 5% commission paid on that, then that would be $120,000 in revenue. If you're at a 70% payout on the grid, then that would be about an $84,000 gross investment revenue paid to you as the advisor who put those investments in place. On the insurance side, I'm going to say that you're probably averaging around $36,000 over that 12-month period for bringing on that. Now, again, some might be higher, some might be lower, but I had to go somewhere with this, so I basically took some average cases and an average case size to get that. So the total 12-month revenue then is about $120,000, and that's assuming you get this sort of ideal or this type of profile client. Now, your expenses. Now, in this case, if you've got $120,000 coming in, you've probably got an assistant. So let's say your assistant's costing about $35,000. Rent to pay for your office, about $12,000. Whether it be a desk fee or whether it be actual, a renting of an office or leasing or whatever. Plus, you've got your licensing fees and whatnot. Let's call that a few $1,000s. So your net that year that you would now have available to you for your income would be $71,000. And that's in year 1. Now, year 2, so what I'm doing here is I'm taking the Model A, so the commission-based model, and I'm saying, okay, now let's see, of those clients, those 12 households that you brought on in that year, what are they adding to your life in that next year? Because obviously there's a lifetime value of a client. So let's take a look at what this year 2 value of those 12 clients you brought on in year 1 would provide you with. Well, there's no more fee. There's no fees because again, you're not charging fees. Your insurance revenue, it's on those clients. Well, if you've put all the insurance in place, so you're only now getting maybe some renewal commissions or whatever, and so that's a couple $1,000s. Investment revenue on that, well, basically you're just picking up a trailer on that. So let's say that's maybe $5,000, and the new clients required then. So now, if you wanted to match your your total 12-month revenue, which was $120,000, you would need to bring in an extra $113,000 from new clients. Okay. Well, if we go back and take a look at that previous year, you brought on 12 clients, you brought in 120,000. So that was an average of $10,000 in revenue per household or per client. So therefore, if you need to get $113,000 in extra revenue to bring yourself up to the 120 that you made in year one, then you're going to need to bring on just over 11 clients. Okay. So basically you got to do it all over again. So those 12 clients really aren't contributing much to the long-term success of your business. You've got to keep on bringing on new clients. You got to keep that high volume up. So you got to bring on 11 new clients. And you know how hard it is to bring on one new client. So, doing 12 clients the first year, 11 clients the next year, it's a pretty big feat. But that's what the way the math's working out. You need to bring on just over 11 clients. Now, we're going to take a look at Model B, which is just simply, as I said before, it's the fee-based model with an investment license. Now, what I'm finding is that a fee-based model with an investment license is prohibiting you from charging financial planning fees. So we're going to say that the financial planning fees are zero because I've just seen too many times with students in the fee-based financial planning mastery academy. They're saying, "Listen, I'm having a real problem with my dealer. They're not letting me properly charge my fees to the client for the financial planning that I'm doing. They're either forcing me to put it through the grid, which is not great, or they're eliminating or prohibiting me from doing it in such a way that makes it easy for the client, by through credit cards or whatnot. And they're basically just discouraging the whole process. So we're going to say that there's no fees in Model B. Now, the gross investment revenue in that case, in this case, remember, you're not doing any commissions. It's all basically trailer fees. So now of those assets, you bring in about $11,000 in assets. You got to pay out the 70%, or you get a 70% payout on that grid. So that gives you $7,700. And that's simply because if you're bringing on $200,000 per client, one a month over that time period, by the end of the month, you basically have about 24 million, but you didn't bring on 24 million up front. You brought it in over a course of time. So the first client, you've got 12 months worth of revenue. The second client, you've got 11 months worth of revenue. The third client, you've got 10 months worth of revenue, and so on and so forth. So you can see that the number, this is where the lag comes in that I was talking about earlier in the show. This is where the lag comes in, where you actually have to wait to get that revenue. So in this case, your net is a $7,700 payout on those same assets. Insurance revenue, we're going to consider that the same because there's at this point not a fee-based solution for the insurance, so we're going to keep that the same. So therefore, the total revenue for that 12-month period is $43,700. Well, in that case, you can't afford an assistant. Let's assume that you're still paying a desk fee of $1,000 a month or rent or whatever. So there's $12,000. Then your licensing fees and MFDA fees and all that sort of stuff. So you still got those. That's a couple $1,000. So your net that year is about $30,000. That's a big difference from the $71,000 from your net in the commission-based model. So it's no wonder people focus on the commission-based model first because they're seeing $71,000 versus $30,000. Now, let's take a look at year two. So if you are able to follow the Model B, and we're going to look at year two now. Now we've got year two. So what do those clients that you brought in, those 12 households you brought in the first year, what do they contribute to your second year? Well, we're going to take a look at the insurance renewals, and that's basically the same way it was before because nothing changes there. So that's a couple $1,000s. Now the investment revenue. Now you've got a full year of revenue that's coming in. So let's say you're getting a 1% fee on those assets. So there's about $24,500 there on a 70% payout. That's giving you $17,000. And again, the payout may be lower because you're not generating as much revenue, but let's just say that it's at a 70% payout to keep it equal. So that gives you a net of about just over $17,000. So now, how many new clients do you need to bring in that year in order to get yourself equal to what your first year's revenues were? Well, your average revenue per client was about $3,700, okay, because you only brought in you brought in about $43,000 in total, so you divide that by 12, and that's going to give you about $3,700. So now, if that's your average revenue, and again, in this example, we're just trying to meet or match our year one revenue and figure out how many new clients do I need to bring on in order to do that. So $3,700 into the $43,000 and change, that's going to be just over 6 clients. Well, that's good because now you can see that you're not having to bring on as many new clients to meet your original revenue. Problem was your original revenue was so much lower. So, you definitely have to do more work in that model because you're just not simply getting the front end loaded But you can start to see now where on the investment oversight fees, now you're getting more, because if you compare this $24,500 in year 2 for the assets you brought in year 1 versus the investment revenue that you got from year 2 from year 1 clients in Model A was only about $5,000. So it's 5 times the revenue. So now all of a sudden you're starting to glean some insight into the power of a fee-based model. So now let's take a look at Model C, which is a fee-based model where you've dropped your license, and now what you're doing is you're charging for your financial planning as well. So you're bringing on clients, and this is again the model I follow, and I recommend that you charge a minimum of $2,000 for the financial plans that you put together for that financial planning program. So if we're bringing in 12 clients that year, we're going to bring in $24,000 worth of revenue. The gross investment revenue is going to be the same, $11,000. But remember, you've dropped your license. Now you've got an investment implementation and oversight fee, a referral agreement. So now you're getting to keep that whole 100% of that revenue. So you're not having to make the grid payout. So you've got $11,000 there. The insurance revenue, going to call that the same at $36,000. So now your total 12-month revenue was $71,000. Well, that equals your Model A revenue, but you haven't been able to hire an assistant. So you had to do more of more of the work yourself. But that's okay, because you only had to bring on 12 clients. And you know what? I think it's doable. Your rent we're going to call the same, but now a lot of the licensing fees are no longer there, and the MFDA fees in Canada, they're no longer there. So your net in year 1 is about $60,000. Okay, well now that's not bad actually for first year starting from scratch. A $60,000 income, it's not bad. It does require some work, no doubt about it. But if you can sort of land into that with energy and sort of follow the proper marketing methods that I talk about, then that's going to give you, definitely a leg up. And I'm not going to say it's easy by any means. I'm not going to say it's easy, but none of these methods are easy because they all require you to go out and get clients. Model C on the second year, this is interesting. So in the second year now, you are, of those 12 clients you brought in year 1, what revenue are they generating to your business in year 2? Well, in the fees, now you're getting your annual renewal fee. So in that case, it's about $1,000 a month, or sorry, $1,000 per client, per household. So now you've got $11,000 in revenue coming in from that. On the insurance side, we're going to call that equal. So it's still the $2,000 that was in all the other examples. The investment revenue, now you're receiving 100% of the investment oversight and implementation fee, which is about $24,500. So you need to generate an extra $33,500 from new clients in order to meet your $71,000 total that you brought in year 1. So how many clients do you need to bring on? Well, you brought in $71,000, 12 clients into that 71 gives you an average client revenue of $6,000, which means you only need to bring on just over 5 clients in order to meet your first year revenue. All of a sudden now you can see you're not having to acquire as many clients, and your revenues are really starting to climb and almost meet. Well, very quickly what happens is you get to the point where the annual renewal or the revenue that comes in from those clients you brought in the previous year really starts to build your business and really starts to build a foundational revenue stream that you can rely on, because it's very sticky revenue. As long as you're servicing those clients and getting together with them on a frequent basis to have your review meetings and keeping them up to date and doing the full oversight on them, you're going to keep those clients. And again, this is just assuming averages. The reality is that my experience has been that in Model C, which is the model that I'm promoting here, that model, that seems to attract larger clients, better clients that are willing to get more engaged with you. So it's definitely a better model. So what's the moral of this story? Well, the moral of the story, you already know what the moral of the story is, but I want to talk about each model. So in Model A, some of the pros that I think are good about Model A is that, it definitely generates more revenue in the short term. There's no doubt about that. Simply the way it's all sort of front end heap loaded on the commissions, you definitely get more revenue in the short term. And that is a benefit. So, I think that's a good model for people who are just starting out and don't have any resources behind them. If you don't have any resources behind you, you do have to pay the bills. So that's a model you may want to consider, but be aware of the other models because you're going to want to very quickly migrate to those models. Okay. So that's the pro side. Now the con side, a little bit different. con side that I've recognized is that it requires a higher number of new clients each year to keep your revenues up. And as time goes on, that's a tough business to manage. You basically, if people can fog a mirror, you're going to bring them on as clients because you need that volume. You need to bring on more and more clients. And I'm talking about a 70% payout grid here. I mean, if you're with one of the IROC firms, Jesus, your grid is probably a lot lower. So you need to just simply keep on bringing on more and more and more and more and more. So it's a very challenging model. The regulators are calling for fee disclosure, and this is going to push advisors into Model B, whether they like it or not. So, with all this going on, the embedded or hidden investment revenue for the advisor, well, that's kind of not the greatest thing. People don't want that, and the reality is that, anyways, in Canada, and I know it's already happened in some of the other countries around the world, that this full transparency is a real thing, and if you're not prepared for it, it could be a rude awakening. So, that's why Model A, I recognize where it works is in the short term. I recognize it's for kind of new people getting them started, and I don't have an issue with that. I just have an issue with people building their full massive practice on that model. Because I don't think it's a great long-term strategy. Model B, now the pro to Model B is that the number of new clients needed to match your previous year's income goes down. I mean, Jesus, it almost gets cut in half from what Model A requires in order to meet the fees. The problem is, on the con side, that the gross revenues are still much lower than Model A. So yeah, you don't need to get as many clients to meet what your previous year's income was, but your previous year's income wasn't that high. The con here as well is that too much gets lost to the dealer because the dealer is kind of restricting you from charging fees for the financial advice directly to clients, and so they're putting some challenges there. And it's very difficult to run a business with these lower early revenues, and unless you've got some resources behind you that can help you bridge that, it's going to be challenging. Now let's take a look at Model C. So what are the pros of Model C? Well, the recurring revenue in this model is it's the highest of all three models. And, once you've brought a client on, there's a long-term value of that client that is unmatched by any of the other models. The number of new clients needed to match your previous year's income is lower because of the higher renewal fees. So, you're not getting compensated to the same level as the previous, as Model A, but you're not too far off. And I believe that when you make this transition to this model, you simply attract a better quality client. And so you're going to have simply higher revenues from that. So I wouldn't be too concerned about that. That's at least been my experience with it. The other pro on Model C is that nothing goes to the grid, nothing goes to the dealer because you're not licensed with the dealer anymore. So you don't have to worry about those added fees and costs and whatnot. It just comes right into your revenue. There's 100% transparency of investment revenues. So because you are signing a referral agreement with a client, because you're putting together that model, everything is charged to the client account. So it's not like they're not seeing it. Everything is fully compliant, and the regulators would love this. So, that's totally on side with how the future is unraveling, or not. You know what I'm trying to say? How the future is coming. Now, the long-term viability of this model, this is where the biggest power comes from. It's much higher because you don't need to work with as many clients to make it financially rewarding. What that means is you can spend more time with your clients, they will refer more business to you, you're going to get higher quality business, and it's not going to require you to be sort of crazy meetings on an annual basis because you don't have to bring on as many clients. So that's the pro side. Now, the con side, in the first few years, I mean, you just can't compare to that sort of upfront heaped commission that you get from the commission-based model. You just can't meet that, all things being equal. But all things aren't equal. The reality is, my experience is that when we migrated over to this Model C, we just started attracting better clients. It just seemed to be that way. I don't know exactly why that is. I mean, it could be because, I was more engaged. My mindset was just simply different. And, when you do change your mindset, you force yourself to change your mindset from talking more about planning versus the products. It makes a big difference. And I don't know why, but at the end of the day, I don't really care why. All I know is that it worked better for us, and we made that change, and it simply worked better. I don't know if it had to do with karma. I can't put my finger on it necessarily, but for whatever reason, as soon as I made that commitment, the universe just looked back and said, okay, we're going to now start directing more and more bigger, better more engaging clients to you. I mean, the clients now that we're working on, I never even thought in a million years I was going to be working on these types of cases. And I'm having a ball doing it. My clients are loving it. They're loving the solutions that we're putting into place. They're, something you can really sink your teeth into. And anyways, it's just very rewarding on that front. So at the end of the day, I'm having more fun working with ideal clients who are loving what I'm doing for them, and everyone is simply happy. And isn't that the bottom line? Isn't that our life's purpose? It's just simply to be happy. This is a big topic and one with a lot of moving parts. And I'm hoping that, in talking about this and sort of going through some of this analysis to sort of shed some of the pros and cons and the things that work and things that don't work, that people will recognize, it is a viable option. Designing a perfect fee-based financial planning firm has more to do with you than anything else. Your fee-based financial planning firm is simply an extension of you and your creativity, your uniqueness. So take the time to go through completing your V2 Mom. It will give you some clarity and allow you to start your journey down the fee-based financial planning path. If you haven't started that journey, I strongly urge you to do that, or at least to inquire about doing that. It's a wonderful journey that has so many rewarding aspects. So get out there and build yourself a better business.
You've been listening to Scott E. Plaskett, a certified financial planner and industry veteran in the world of fee-based financial planning. Want free resources to help you build a better fee-based financial planning firm? Visit ilovefinancialplanning.com right now to register for Scott's Inner Circle email list, where you'll get front-of-the-line updates on the latest resources that are driving profits to Scott's fee-based financial planning practice. All of the resources are pulled directly from the highly acclaimed Fee-Based Financial Planning Mastery Academy. Go now to ilovefinancialplanning.com. Build a better business and make more money with your fee-based financial planning practice today.